नागाननाय श्रुतियज्ञविभूषिताय गौरीसुताय गणनाथ नमो नमस्ते। कर्पूरगौरं करुणावतारं संसारसारं भुजगेन्द्रहारं सदा वसन्तं हृदयारविन्दे भवं भवानी सहितं नमामि। या कुन्देन्दु तुषारहार धवला या शुभ्रवस्त्रावृता या वीणा वरदण्डमण्डितकरा या श्वेतपद्मासना या ब्रह्मा च्युतशङ्कर प्रभृतिभिः देवै सदा वन्दिता सा मां पातु सरस्वती भगवती निःशेषजाड्यापः। सर्वमङ्गलमाङ्गल्ये शिवे सर्वार्थसाधिके शरण्ये त्र्यम्बके गौरी नारायणी नमोस्तुते। आविर्बभूव कलशं दधदर्ण वाद्यः पीयूषपूर्ण ममरात्वकृते सुराणां रोगजालजीर्ण जनता जनतः प्रशंसो धन्वन्तरिच भगवान भविकाय भूयात्। श्री धन्वंतराय नमः। ओम शांति ओम शांति ओम शांति।
Namaskar. I would like to welcome you all on the eve of 255th International Webinar of Ayush Samriddhi platform. Our holy mission is supported by Vishwa Ayurveda Parishad, Aushadhi Nirmata Prakost, State Vishwa Ayurveda Parishad West Bengal and National Vishwa Ayurveda Parishad, Emami Jhandu, International Interdisciplinary Institute for Research, Education and Skill. So I would like to welcome you all. Thanks for joining us today, because today is very unique program. Respected Anil Jauhri sir is kind enough to bless us today with his inspirational speech on G.C.P certification. He is involved in various administrative committees which are now formulating the rules and regulation for Ayurvedic industry, education, research and training for all sectors of Ayurveda or Ayush. So I would like to welcome Sri Anil Jauhri ji. Welcome sir. Madam Debjani Roy ji. Welcome Madam Debjani Roy ji.
Namaskar.
Dr. Harish Verma ji. Namaskar Madam. Dr. Harish Verma ji from Canada. Welcome.
Sir,
Dr. J.P. Singh ji. Namaskar sir. Dr. Sanish Davis from Mumbai. Welcome Dr. Davis. We would be definitely benefited by your inspirational speech on the topic today.
Thank you, sir.
And our senior respected Dr. C.V. Jha ji, Dr. Jagdishwar ji, Dr. Viren Abhinit Agnihotri ji, Vishnu Prasad Sharma ji, and definitely Madan Thangvelu sir from UK will also join us within few minutes. So, before inviting Sri Anil Jauhri ji, I would like to introduce humbly Sri Anil Jauhri ji. Anil Jauhri ji is former CEO of the National Accreditation Board of Certification Bodies, NABCB, a constituent board of the Quality Council of India, and National Accreditation Body for Certification and Inspection attached to the Ministry of Commerce and Industry. He has 41 plus years of experience in the field of quality, standards, certification, and accreditation, having worked earlier in BSI, the National Standards Body, Export Inspection Council, India's official export regulator and certificate body under Ministry of Commerce and Industry. He joined NABCB in 2006 as advisor and was appointed director in 2010. Great, sir. Congratulations. And CEO in 2013. During his tenure as CEO, NABCB secured a number of international equivalences such as product certification, inspection, various management systems like food safety, information security, occupational health and safety, and energy management systems, etc. Post-retirement in July 19, besides being a lead assessor for accreditation bodies like NABCB, ANAB, and UAF in USA, he is an evaluator for Asia Pacific Accreditation Corporation Cooperation, APAC, as well as International Accreditation Forum, IAF. He also led the development of recently launched G.C.P professional certification scheme, for which we are meeting today. And now we would like, he is nationally and internationally recognized expert, having worked with such international bodies, UNFCCC, UNIDO, PTV, FAO, APO, and various recognitions and achievements are on his record. He is an father figure in quality control, and we would like to invite him humbly to grace the occasion and inspire us with his inspiration speech. Welcome, sir. Welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Sharma. Namaskar, everybody. I'm glad to be back in this forum, having come earlier for the Ayush Mark scheme some time back. It so happened that I was seeing Dr. Sharma putting out G.C.P series, so I thought I should tell him that there is a G.C.P certification scheme. It may have some relevance to Ayurveda sector, and therefore we thought there should be a session on the G.C.P scheme. So I'm glad to have my colleagues, Dr. Sanish Davis, who is the specialist in the team who wrote down the standard for competence of G.C.P professionals, and Dr. Debjani Roy, who is managing the whole program in CDSA, Clinical Development Services Organization, agency, which is a part of THSTI in Department of Biotechnology. I'm going to just share the screen with the presentation, short presentation. Can you see the screen now? Sharma ji, can you see the screen?
Yes, man. Yes, sir.
So I'll present an overview, and then it will be followed by a presentation by Dr. Sanish Davis, who will explain the competence standard, which is really the soul of this entire program. So this is called Good Clinical Practice Professional Certification Scheme. I'm sure I don't have to explain G.C.P to this gathering, which is of all healthcare professionals. So CDSA has been involved in G.C.P for a long time. Now, G.C.P, as you know, is prescribed under the regulations by the CDSCO, and some of those are extracted here for your information. That, for example, every member of the ethics committee shall be required to undergo training on GCP. This is the law in India as far as clinical trials are concerned. So this is where GCP compliance is mentioned as a mandatory requirement. This is CDSCO is the Central Drug Standard Control Organization, which, as you know, under Drugs and Cosmetics Act is regulating drugs, both allopathic as well as Ayush drugs, as well as medical devices. CDSCO has issued a GCP, has NDCSTCT rules of 2019. And then there's an international document, which I'm sure Dr. Davis will explain you more, ICH GCP of 2016. So GCP compliance is mentioned in other documents also. And therefore it is expected. And then during the COVID, we have realized how many clinical trials have been done, and GCP need has arisen. So what is foreseen is that there will be more and more need for trained GCP manpower. And since a lot of people already have the knowledge of GCP, I mean, there's no reason why they should go through a fresh training program. And therefore, the concept of recognition of prior learning also comes into play, and which is absorbed here or in this scheme by way of certifying GCP professionals. How this dialogue started was actually CDSA came to NABCB when I was in NABCB towards the end of my tenure as CEO, whether they could get their training certified, because CDSA was pretty active in GCP training and has a name for itself as trainers of GCP. Unfortunately, nothing of this kind existed at that time, and till recently did not exist. So my suggestion to them was, looking at their domain competence, I told them, why do you look for certification of your training? Why don't you become yourself an owner of a scheme which will certify trainings, because trainings are taking place at many places in India, and there's no such mechanism in existence. Of course, in QCI, we had established certain schemes, as you know. I myself was involved in setting up certain schemes, but I always faced one question when I set up schemes in QCI, whether it was for Ayush or for yoga certification. One question that used to be asked to me is, what is QCI's domain competence? Why should QCI set up a scheme for yoga certification or set up a scheme for a variety of things? Of course, our competence was in the field of quality, in the field of certification, how to establish certification scheme, but we always got domain competence from outside. Now what is happening is that domain competence organizations like CDSA, which has domain competence of GCP, or Rashtriya Ayurveda Vidyapith, which has domain competence of Ayurveda, they are coming forward to develop sub-scheme, which is a good development, because at the end of the day, domain competence is the crux of the whole, any scheme, whether it's Ayush Mark scheme or it's a medical devices scheme. The domain experts are really the soul of those schemes. So CDSA leadership, fortunately, responded favorably to my suggestion that why don't they become scheme owner? And they started to work in January. I remember January of 2020 when they set up this multiple committee structure, and they invited me. In fact, contrary to my advice, this was contrary to my advice, invited me to chair the steering committee. So I remember we had the first meeting in February of 2020, and we laid out a plan of action on how the scheme would be developed. So there is a technical committee which is headed by Dr. Y.K. Gupta, who is a well-known person in the field of GCP, and Dr. Sanish Davis, who is here with us today. He is a very essential, a very critical member of that team in the technical committee. And there's an assessment committee which is looking into the matters of assessment, which is more of assessment professionals. And we have based our scheme on an international standard, which is ISO 17024, which is on person certification. And the beauty of this standard is that it recognizes that people can be certified, professionals can be certified. And how do you certify professionals? It's not based on, academic degrees or work experience, etc. It is based on defining knowledge and skills. So, for example, when we set up a scheme on yoga certification, we defined what is the knowledge a yoga teacher or a yoga instructor should have, and what are the skills he should have. Skill is in terms of asanas that he has to do, and what is the theoretical knowledge he should have. Similarly, we set up a scheme for traditional healers. Dr. Debjani Roy here was involved in that scheme. So we set up what is the knowledge they need to treat, for example, arthritis. What is the skill they need to treat arthritis? So now this frees you from the requirement of degrees and 10 years experience or 5 years experience. Nothing else is needed. Once you are able to, well establish what is the knowledge and what is the skill needed, then next you need to do is to establish a program for evaluation. How do you evaluate the knowledge and skills? And there could be variety of methods. It could be interview, it could be test, it could be practical observation, it could be on the job demonstration, etc. So the primary framework which has been established under this scheme is of certifying GCP professionals by defining knowledge and skills, which Dr. Davis will talk about. And then the supporting system is of training also, because today if somebody wants to acquire that knowledge, he can go through a standardized training, because training is also not standardized. So there are two components to this scheme. One is of certifying professionals, which is the main component. Main idea is that at the end of the day, GCP professionals, anybody who claims to have knowledge of GCP should go through an evaluation process and should become certified. And in order to produce that kind of knowledge, if people require to go through a training, then we standardize a training system also. And therefore, there is a system of approving training providers also. And this entire system was devised somewhere, I remember, in June of 2020. And then we put it out on public domain as per international best practice, that, any new system, new standard you produce, or new scheme you produce should go through public consultation. And a number of comments were received, I remember, even from abroad, which were addressed. And finally, the scheme was ready. But somehow, for some reason, it got delayed in terms of launch. And finally, on 15th of August this year, it was launched by the Secretary of DBT as a formal scheme. You can see here some of the players in that scheme. That's the team in CDSA. Dr. Debjani Roy is in the green sari at extreme left. On the right is the chief of THSTI. So these are the players who were involved in formation of the scheme. Some of us joined this program virtually, as is the norm these days. So I was also there, and Dr. Davis was there. I mean, one of the questions, even CDSA management asked me, why should CDSA do it? I said, anybody can do, as long as you have the core competence for a particular subject, which in GCP, in case of GCP, they had. And this is a concept that is internationally now operative. There are a number of schemes around the world which operate on these principles. And since there is a need for standardizing training, there is need for training, there's need for trained professionals, but there's no system of either certifying trainings or certifying professionals. Somebody has to take the lead. So CDSA agreed to take that lead. Now, I mean, just to place in context, we all understand regulations. We know who is the boss in the regulations, where standards are enforced by law. For example, we know FSSAI, which is food authority, which brings out food regulations. We know CDSCO, which brings out regulations on drugs. We have other kind of regulators like IRDA for insurance and TRAI for telecom services, and there are a number of them, number of sectors, both products and services, which are usually having health and safety implications, or if there is cheating involved, or there is environmental issues, we have regulations, which is enforcing standards by law. There are a number of voluntary schemes also. This is voluntary sector where there is no law in place, but still there's a need for having an institutional system of certifying. And these are normally developed in private sector. Internationally, if you see, most of the voluntary schemes are in private sector. Some of them you may be aware of, good agricultural practices or forest certification. Some of them are relevant, in fact, to Ayurveda field, in the sense that medicinal plant certification scheme we set up for National Medicinal Plants Board, or the Ayush Mark scheme is also a voluntary scheme. So in this context, in India, many things happen with the initiative of the government. Private sector still is, to my mind, at least in the area of quality, etc. Even the standards body is a governmental body. In developed countries, they are private bodies. run by the industry. So in QCI, it was I who got the first chance to create a scheme that was Ayush Mark way back in 2009. That was the first scheme. In fact, we never had a mandate or a desire to develop schemes. It was thrown at us by the then Secretary Ayush, who asked, "Can you develop a scheme for us?" And I said, and I happened to be the person at the right place. And we developed a scheme. And then it went on. We went on adding like medicine plants for NMPB, yoga professional certification scheme. I then now we are involved in. I mean, I am involved in a scheme like forest certification, which is done by another body. So CDSA is of following that international practice and becoming a scheme owner. Now, this kind of schemes, incidentally, GCP is, as you know, is an international concept and international document is there. So we expect that this could become, internationally known. CDSA has the expertise of GCP. Of course, we'll have to face challenges. I have been through various voluntary schemes, and there are various challenges in voluntary schemes. One of them is acceptability, the value that you bring. Somebody will ask, why should I get certified? Why should I spend some money on getting certified unless you bring some value, which takes time. Even in, I think yoga certification, I'm involved there. It takes time to build value. In regulation, it's easy. Everybody is compelled to go through a process, not so in voluntary scheme. So right now we are in the phase of promoting the scheme. As I said, this is the scheme which is developed first of its kind internationally. We are not aware of any other scheme of GCP certification which is based on an international standard like ISO 17024. And it has, as I said, two components. One is certifying professionals. The other is certifying training institutions. You can see all these documents on the website, which is given here. It's in public domain. This is the logo and the tagline, raising the bar. The logo is reflective of its Indian origin with the colors of the Indian flag. So this is how it will be publicized. Normally schemes have a distinct logo, so we have a logo here. So we expect that there will be assessment of knowledge and skills, and there will be competence will be established, and there will be standardized curriculum. That is what this scheme will promote in the market. This is how the schematic is. On the top is CDSA as a scheme owner. The personal certification bodies will certify. It's not CDSA which will directly certify professionals. We envisage that there will be independent bodies will come up and they will certify, which will be approved by CDSA. And training institutions will be directly approved by CDSA, because we don't see that there may be too many training institutions. If the numbers increase, even this could switch to third party. Because, for example, recently set up Ayurveda training program, which we have set up. I am involved in Rashtriya Ayurveda Vidyapit. We are envisaging third-party bodies certifying training institutions, but not here, not for the time being. And the personal certification bodies will get accredited as per ISO 1724 by my previous organization, NABCB, which is part of an international system. So if the standard is international, if in this case ICH guidelines, which are international guidelines for GCP, and the process of assessing is also international, which is obtained through NABCB. NABCB's international equivalences are ensuring that you use an international process for assessment. Both are important. Standard is important. The process of assessment is important. For example, to make it more simply and understandable to you, your testing should be done in your Ayurveda products should be tested in NABL accredited labs. Why do we say that? Because we want the labs have to be internationally acceptable, so that a test report generated in NABL lab will be acceptable internationally, not otherwise. Similarly, assessment process has to be international, and that is through NABCB. NABL is for lab and NABCB is for certification and inspection. And then finally, the professionals who are certified will be able to, at some point of time, able to claim international, linkage that we are certified to an international document through an international process. So we expect that when its schemes really gets going, it will also promote, acceptance of our GCP professionals elsewhere around the world. Because if the base document is international, which in this case it is, that is what is aimed at. In fact, Applied to products, this system is used for free trade. And I am part of negotiations even now with the Department of Commerce on, negotiating with UK and UAE. Acceptance are products which are based on international standards and based on this system of assessment, international system of assessment. So that's how we expect NABCB's international equivalence to be used by us for acceptability, international acceptability of the professionals who are certified using the international standard 17024. This is just a schematic just to make you understand how international equivalence works. This is on the top, you can see IAF and ILAC, which are international bodies, International Accreditation Forum and International Laboratory Accreditation Corporation. These are actually merging by 2023. These will become a single international body for accreditation. Below them, you can see regional bodies. Dr. Sharma read my profile in which he said he's an evaluator for IAF. That's at the top. And he said he's an evaluator for APAC, which is Asia Pacific Accreditation Corporation. We fall under APAC, but Europe has its own accreditation corporation, EA, and two Americas have their own. Africa has its own. I have not shown here. There's African Accreditation Corporation. There's Arab Accreditation Corporation. Arab countries have got together and created their own accreditation corporation. So there are 5 actually. And these 5 regions are actually evaluated by IAF. In fact, right now I am involved in, as IAF evaluator, I am evaluating IAAC, Inter-American Accreditation Corporation. And I am also in December going to evaluate Arab Accreditation Corporation. So physically, IAF and ILAC actually evaluate these regions. These regions, and this happens every 4 years, and these regions every 4 years evaluate the accreditation bodies. So NABCB and NABL, the 2 accreditation bodies in India, they undergo evaluation every 4 years, international evaluation, and they have to comply with a standard which is written on the site, ISO 17011. That is the standard for accreditation bodies. And these accreditation bodies in turn accredit certification bodies, inspection bodies, and laboratories as per international standards, as you can see on the right. And 1724 is for personal certification bodies. And down at the bottom is the object of assessment. Who is the object of assessment? In this case, a professional. In case of product, the product is the object of assessment, which is tested. In case of organization, the organization is object of assessment. In case of process, like organic process is object of assessment. So, and if that is as per international standard, as you can see at the bottom, if our bottom standard is international, then the whole process becomes international. That your standard is international and your process of evaluation against that standard is also international. And that is what promotes international equivalence. And this is what is used in free trade agreements for actually free flow of products. For example, in Europe, if a product made in Germany freely goes to France or to Italy, it is using this concept. This is embedded in the free trade agreements. And that's what India is also trying to work out free trade agreements with various countries in products, as I said. So this is a concept that we are also trying to leverage for, facilitating acceptance of certified GCP professionals of India in other countries. So there's a governing structure. We have a steering committee. As I said, I am the chair of that steering committee. There's a technical committee chaired by Dr. Pawan Kr. There is an assessment committee chaired by one Mr. Krishnamurthy, who is well known in the field of accreditation. And internally, there's a committee for taking decisions, and there's an appellate authority within the structure. It's all on the website. You can see it's a very, very transparent structure. And these are the documents all listed here, which are available: an overview of the scheme, a governing structure document, minimum standard of competence, which will be talked about today, the system for approval of professional certification bodies, which is not so relevant to you. Certification process will be talked about today. Similarly, for training institution, the criteria as well as assessment process will be talked about today. There are some other documents, and all these are at this particular website of CDSA. Anyone can go and download these documents. Certain formats are there. This is how the website looks like. If you go on the website, this is how it will look like. Anybody, all of you are welcome to go there and go into the documents and look at the documents and give your comments at any time. As you know, we always say standards are dynamic. They are not cast in stone. At any given time, if there's a comment which is valid, they can be changed. So this is the overview of the scheme. And now we'll go into some detailing. The crux of, as I said, the most crucial part, the soul of the scheme is the minimum standard of competence. which my colleague Dr. Sanish, who worked on that standard, will speak about next. Thank you very much.
Excellent, sir. Great. Great overview. Means it is learning for us, sir. Definitely, we are very much grateful to you that in very easy language you have communicated the complicated way of our regulations. Excellent, sir. Excellent. It is very
Thank you very much.
simple, and I'm definitely wishing that everybody is going to register himself or herself along with his organization. So thank you very much, sir. I would like to request Dr. Jayesh Thakkar. Dr. Jayesh Thakkar, am I audible to you?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes. So kindly proceed for moderating
Yeah.
next session. Welcome. Welcome, Dr. David. Welcome, Dr. David.
Thank you, sir. Now, we have with us Dr. Sanish Davis, sir, with us. Sir is R&D Director, GCO Janssen, President in ISCR, New Delhi. Let me welcome sir with a brief introduction. Dr. Sanish Davis is MD DM FCP, R&D Director, Janssen, J&J Pharmaceuticals, India. Sir is President in Indian Society for Clinical Research, that is ISCR, and Nodal Stakeholder Organization for CR in India. Sir is clinical pharmacologist, DM by training. He has over 15 years of experience in pharmaceutical industry, clinical development, clinical pharmacology, medical affairs, new product development strategy, and planning in both India and emerging markets. Sir has passion in CR educational philanthropy, operationalizing ethics in the context of clinical trials. So let's take the pleasure to welcome Dr. Sanish Davis, sir, for his presentation today. Welcome, sir. The desk is yours.
Thank you so much, Jayesh ji, and thank you so much all the organizers for giving us the opportunity to present. So I will present about the minimum standards of competence which has been developed, which is called as the MSc document, and this is part of you could say the good clinical practice certification scheme that has been developed by CBSCA. And I represent the technical committee and I present it on behalf of the technical committee. A couple of disclaimers with regards to the presentation, both from a THSTI side as well as from my organizations. So the minimum standards of competence has been developed by CBSA, THSTI, under the Department of Biotechnology, and the version 1 is from September. There has been additional revisions of the version which has happened over the last couple of months based on feedback that has been received from viewers from both national as well as international ethical as well as G.C.P framework institutions. So G.C.P, as everyone knows, is a national or an international standard for biomedical studies. It covers the entire gamut of design, conduct, performance, monitoring, auditing, recording, analysis, and reporting of clinical trials. And within India, the DTAB under the Drugs and Cosmetic Act had endorsed the adoption of G.C.P guidelines for streamlining all clinical trials that are done in India. And like Jauhri ji had already pointed out, this has been adopted by the International Organization for Standardization, ISO, through the ISO 14155 2011. Currently, if you look at what is there in India, there is a lack of a standard as to what a professional who is working in a G.C.P environment or a good clinical practice environment needs to actually undergo as part of his training, his or her training, and what kind of certification needs to be done either at the outset or on an annual basis. And this is all the more important because clinical research workforce requires an influx of both newly qualified professionals. It also requires that the current workforce has to also continuously enhance its competence and skills through various professional development activities so that the skill sets are not eroded. And the competence in clinical research in many ways can be understood as well as evaluated based on the skills, the knowledge, and the applications of the skills and knowledge to the work environment. And the technical committee believes that since the competencies are observable, they can even be measured and assessed to ensure that these are imbibed by the professional. Currently, there are no generally agreed upon set of core competencies upon which educational programs and training requirements for both entry-level professionals as well as professionals who are currently working either in academia or the pharmaceutical industry in the field of clinical research. And that's where CDSA THSTI actually brought out the G.C.P Professional Certification Scheme, or G.C.P PCS as we call it now, which is designed to evaluate and certify in a self-directed, practice-based learning rather than supervised training. It is envisaged to promote, maintain, and develop competencies, including professionalism, knowledge, skills, and attributes of the individual. It encourages applicants to plan, record, reflect on professional development and requirement needs through assessing themselves against the competence standard. And the scheme owners have developed the MSc of the good clinical practice professional requirement. And those who get certified will actually be called as a certified G.C.P professional basic. The scheme owners are also in trying to develop more advanced versions so that anyone who has completed their basic G.C.P PCS can actually then move on to the advanced version. Now, in the heart of this standard is what is the core competence domains. So the technical team has identified 6 core competence domains that any professional who's working in clinical research should have. One is on the protocol, investigational product development and regulations, ethical considerations for patient safety and well-being, clinical study operations, site and study management, and data management and informatics. The next couple of slides are on each of these core competency domains and what we are expecting as evaluation as well as competence. Now, the protocol is, you could say, pretty standard across the world, right? It encompasses knowledge on the scientific concepts of what is required for designing the protocol. It should involve endpoints, should identify important question, and there are, you could say, the requirement for somebody who's writing a protocol or reading a protocol or implementing a protocol, having to have some basic knowledge about the pathophysiology of the disease, pharmacology of the drug, as well as toxicology of the drug, etc., and how it all fits in with the protocol. The second part is specific to the investigational product or device or biologicals which are being developed or regulated, and this looks at the roles and responsibilities, what are the GMP requirements from a life cycle management perspective, what are regulatory requirements for developing a medicinal product, and then of course safety as well as other different parts of what clinical research has to be conducted. The third one, I would say, is the heart of the whole core competence domain, because irrespective of what the professional is, there has to be ethical underpinning which has to have heavy emphasis on patient safety and well-being. And this looks at both a grounding in historical events, understanding what patient participant protection is, you could say importance of ethical issues related to vulnerable population in clinical trials, and then of course a lot of details about informed consent process and its key elements, including compensation and other activities. The fourth core competence domain is on clinical study operations, which talk about who are the different players in the whole activity, how do you actually design, conduct, and document the clinical trial, details about adverse events, serious adverse events, its management, etc., monitoring, auditing, and then post-marketing activities. The study and site management core competence domain actually talk a little bit about the human interface as well as how it interacts with the different other stakeholders in the clinical research enterprise. So this would deal with financial management of how the studies are run, timelines, project management, and then of course a little bit about legal responsibilities and the oversight process. Typically, a person who is a qualified G.C.P professional or somebody who works in clinical research sometimes would not have understanding about data management and informatics. So this includes biostatistics, how is data collected, how do you ensure that the data that is collected is appropriate and with good quality, and then of course, how does the data flow all the way up to how analysis of the data is done in order to finally get to the, you could say, the results. Now, while all these domains and the competence has been identified, sometimes it's also important to know what kind of competence levels is needed to perform a certain role within clinical research. Would a clinician who is actually a medical doctor have to have a same level of understanding, like for example, maybe a project manager or a research nurse or even somebody who is an auditor? So in order to ensure that this is clarified, the level of competence required to perform each of the different stated roles within clinical research was identified, and it was codified as either basic or advanced level in order to perform a particular role. It was further noted that you cannot actually have mathematical precision in order to assess a person on clinical research. So several sub-competencies were developed for each of the domain, and this is broken down into both effective, cognitive, as well as psychomotor action. Effective actions are what are the attitudes, beliefs, and other, you could say, ways of, you could say, understanding or you could say looking at doing an activity. Cognitive is most easily understood because this is the knowledge and skills that are required to conduct a clinical research. So there could be terms like identify, describe, discuss, etc. And then the third one is that the psychomotor or the physical skills, which is to demonstrate how to do a particular activity, how do you communicate, how do you perform a particular requirement in clinical research, etc. The next couple of slides are on, you could say, what is required as different elements. So if you look at the first competence domain, which is on the protocol, how do you assess a person? So one could be to recognize the need and rationale of the principles for clinical research and the drug discovery process. It could also be elicited by asking the candidate or the person to explain the scientific principles. And then there could also be, for example, in the case of an adverse event or a serious adverse event, how does a G.C.P professional recognize the differences between an adverse event and a serious adverse event, and what needs to be done when there is a serious adverse event that happens. So there are a lot of documents which are referred to come to the MSc, including the G.C.P guidelines, the ICH G.C.P E6 guidelines, which was released in 2016, the NDCT rules in 2019, as well as the ICMR guidelines, etc. So with that, I come to the end of the presentation and happy to take questions.
Excellent, Doctor. Excellent, Dr. David. Great. That is great learning for us today. And definitely we are going to register ourselves and our institute also. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Dr. Jayesh.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Dr. Davis, sir, for your excellent presentation. I would like to ask our respected delegates that if they have any questions or any points to discuss with our Dr. Davis sir, they are welcome. We are having Dr. Davis with us for the next few minutes. Then sir have another meeting to join. So if anybody has anything to ask or discuss, with the permission of our host sir, we can welcome.
Dr. Harish Verma ji from Canada, would you like to ask anything, sir? Welcome.
प्रणाम।
Welcome, sir. Welcome.
आज तो सीखने का ही प्रोग्राम है, ये मेरे लिए एक नया सब्जेक्ट है तो मैं सीख रहा हूँ। तो मैं शर्मा जी, इसमें एक क्वेश्चन ये था कि आयुर्वेदा को लेकर के क्या हम मेडिसिन को या हमारी जो क्लिनिकल प्रैक्टिस है उसकी स्टैंडर्डाइजेशन कैसे होती है? ये जो जितना मैंने सुना है, ये दीज आर जस्ट जनरल थिंग्स। तो आयुर्वेदा को लेकर जो क्वालिटी कंट्रोल में जो लोग हम प्रॉब्लम्स फेस करते हैं इंडस्ट्री में, वो मेनली एक तो रॉ मटेरियल की आइडेंटिफिकेशन वो बहुत डिफिकल्ट है। जैसे दारू हल्दी पता नहीं लगता कि ये कौन सा प्लांट है, बर्बेरिस एरिस्टेटा है या बर्बेरिस दूसरी स्पीसीज है। और इवन जो रसौंत बाजार में मिलती है उसमें कितने परसेंट बर्बेरिस एक्सट्रैक्ट है या नहीं है, वो सारी डिफिकल्टीज हैं। तो क्वालिटी कंट्रोल एक तो ड्रग्स को लेके है, दूसरा जो क्लिनिकल ट्रायल्स होती हैं मेडिसिन की, उसको लेके भी काफी मुझे लगता है दिक्कत आ रही है। अभी इंडिया में इतना इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर नहीं बना कि जेन्युइन ट्रायल्स सब जगह होती हों। तो इसके बारे में थोड़ा सा बताइए कि जो लैकुनास अभी तक हैं कैसे उसको फिल किया जा सकता है। थैंक यू सर।
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. I would like to request Dr. J.P. Singh from Sri Dhanvantari Herbals, Amritsar. Dr. J.P. Singh, sir.
Namaskar to everybody, sir. So, this is a learning session. So we are learning from the QCI, and we have heard Mr. Anil Jauhri ji, and we will Dr. Davis also. So the questions which was put basically by Dr. Harish Verma ji, he right from the raw drug to onward. So we should look from the very beginning to, because the availability of the raw drug is very not it is availability is not there. When the bases are not available, how the medicine will be better and how the this clinical trials will be made. So I will speak on some other day. So now I'm in a learning process only. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. From homeopathy, marketing head of Baxan is with us, Dr. Nishant Tripathi. I hope this system is applicable to homeopathy GCP also. So I would like to request Dr. Nishant Tripathi if any question he has. Otherwise, we will move. Yes.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sharma.
Yes.
बड़े ध्यान से मैं सुन रहा था और प्रेजेंटेशन पूरा देख रहा था, and I think it's very very useful. और questions तो हैं, I have a lot of questions, but इससे रिलेटेड नहीं है, थोड़ा डिफरेंट है और मैं वेट कर रहा हूँ उस सेशन का, जब वो सेशन शुरू हो तो उस तरह का क्वेश्चन पुटअप किया जाए। बाकी जो क्लिनिकल का है दैट इज वेरी यूजफुल और बहुत ही अच्छा लगा मेरे को पूरा सुन के। थैंक यू।
Thank you, Jauhri ji. Thank you, David ji, and thank you, Nishant ji, also for your valuable comments. Now, I would like to request Dr. Jayesh Thakkar to move forward. Thank you, Dr.
Thank
Davis.
you. Any
Thank
other
you, David ji.
questions we can have in the chat box? Dr. Sanish Davis, sir. Sir, you would like to add something?
No, so there was always this question whether how do we ensure that all the other different you could say systems, whether it is Ayurveda, homeopathy, Siddha or Unani, can actually you could say partake of this GCP professional certification scheme. And there are discussions which I think Debjani ji will talk about, and you could say bring to the front of everyone. So thank you once again. Thank you for all the questions as well as your comments as well as your patient listening.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us today. And we'll indeed like to help you to have you in future sessions also. Thank you, sir.
We will be inviting you again and again. Today we are not really fulfilled with your blessings. Definitely we will be inviting you again and again. Please cooperate.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dhanyawad.
So nice.
Thank you, sir. So moving on with our next session, we are indeed glad to have Professor Debjani Roy with us. She is Program Manager in GCPPCS, CDSA, THSTI, former advisor in QCI, DBT Government of India, and she is from New Delhi. Let me read a brief about Madam. We have really an important personality joining with us. So all our personalities today are very great. So a brief about Professor Debjani Roy, Madam. She is currently with CDSA, THSTI, DBT Government of India to develop and implement the Good Clinical Practice Professional Certification Scheme, GCPPCS, for the GCP professionals based on the international standard ISO 17024 for professional certification. Prior to joining DBT, Professor Roy was advisor in Quality Control of India, New Delhi, to develop and implement the voluntary certification scheme for traditional community healthcare providers for the personal certification of folk healers. Professor Roy is an assessor and technical expert for various ISO standards. She is empaneled as an assessor and technical expert with NABCB, Yoga Certification Board of Ministry of Ayush, and United Accreditation Foundation, USA. She has a PhD degree in life sciences with several years of postdoctoral research in Germany and the Netherlands. She has also done UGC, INSA, DAAD, and Smithsonian Visiting Fellow for Advanced Research in Behavioral Biology. She has been a full professor at Northeastern Hill University, Shillong, and Indira Gandhi National Open University, New Delhi for nearly 3 decades and has published extensively in peer-reviewed national and international journals. So we take the pleasure to welcome ma'am. Ma'am, the desk is yours. Welcome.
Thank you so much. And I'm really, really grateful to get this opportunity to come and present something about GCP, Professional Certification Scheme. Am I audible? Hello?
Yes, ma'am. It's perfectly audible. Please continue.
Okay. Okay, because there's some construction work going on here. That's what I figured out, and therefore my laptop is not connecting. I'm on the phone, so I will request you to please do the projections for me. Thank you so much. So today what I'm going to present is basically, I'm very grateful also to the earlier two speakers to have made my presentation much more simpler. They have already explained the basic backbone of this entire scheme, the genesis, the framework, the overview which Mr. Jauhri has presented. He's a very knowledgeable person and a guiding force here. And similarly, Dr. Sanish Davis, who has been actually the writer for our minimum standard of competence documents for GCP. With these two presentations, so my job is much more easier, not to explain and go back to these things. So I come straight away to the systems and the process about the entire scheme, how we do it. And as Mr. Jauhri has already said, that the scheme has got 2 parts. One is basically the certification of the GCP professionals, on which I'm not going to get into the details of the entire system of how personal certification body will be set up and how they would be doing their own processes, but how the GCP professionals would be certified. So that is the thing that I'm going to talk about. And then I will also emphasize on the approval of the GCP training institutions, and that is what is very common, and especially with the RAV also coming up, and also they have established this accreditation board for training institutions for Ayurveda profession. That is something similar to what this scheme also envisages, and therefore I thought it will be good to share this entire thing with you. And as I said, the basis of this entire thing is the minimum standard of competence, which Dr. Sanish Davis has already explained. And the main thing is, for the certification part, we are actually focusing on the process of the minimum standard of the competence of the GCP professionals for the certifications. And for the training institutes, the other part, or the left and the right hand, as we say, is to impart the training to be built around, again, the minimum standard of competence. So as you can say, the minimum standard of competence is the backbone, and based on this minimum standard of competence, or the minimum standard for this GCP PCS, the scheme, we have built in the entire system. So this was the brief introduction. We go on to the next slide, please. So as again, Mr. Jauhri has said something, he has already spoken about personal certification. And what is personal certification? Basically, it is to certify the people who are knowledgeable in the sense that till now, mostly even I come from an academic system where we actually talk about examinations and certificates, mostly paper or document based competence. But here, for this personal certification based on the ISO standard 17024, it is the competence that we harp on, the competence of the people. And what is competence? That means the knowledge and the skill which the people have, and it needs to be demonstrated to get certified. And this competence, as we say, which is different from the education, the traditional education system, is the standard says it can be acquired through any route. Means a person need not go through the entire 12 standard or BSc degree, MSc degree, or things like that. But if the person can even have the skills and knowledge, maybe it comes down through family traditions or through observations or through work experience or any route, as long as the person can demonstrate that the person has the knowledge and the skills, or the so-called together competence to deliver this particular job. And therefore, once they demonstrate, the whole thing is to evaluate. And once they go through the evaluation process will again depend whether it's a written examination, whether it is an oral examination, or whether through practical observations or any other route. For example, I have been associated with the certification of the folk healers. In that case, in folk healers, as we know, many of them across the country, they speak different language. Many of them have just got the entire skill from their elders or through family lineage. They may not have the education background. So in that case, we had to think out of the box how to fit this entire standard requirements for their evaluation. So it was like more oral examination. We went on site to the practice station and see how they're preparing their medicines, how they're growing the medicinal plants, what is the hygiene conditions there, how they're packaging their medicines in that sense. So everything has to be evaluated. Evaluation can be through any side with their competence. That means the knowledge and the skill. The people get certified, and that is when you are certifying the people. It is known as personal certification, and the standard ISO 17024 deals with that. And it is not like even in traditional education system, mostly I come from that system myself, that when we get a degree and then we are happy and that is lifelong for us, and we may go for some upgradation, but that is not. But here they are people who get certified, they are constantly under surveillance, they are being watched upon for the right practices, the right doings, and they are under strict vigilance in that sense that they are doing the right things, what they're supposed to do. It's not that they get certified and they do what they like. And then this is a certification system which has got a validity, and after that, when they near that validity period, they have to undergo a recertification process. So that is what is actually in nutshell the personal certification. Can we go on to the next slide, please? So therefore, with GCP PCS, that means we are just using the short form, which is Good Clinical Practice Professional Certification Scheme. It follows this model of the international standard. And there we have the CDSA THSTI, which is an organization under the Department of Biotechnology, Government of India, is the scheme owner. And as Mr. Jauhri has already said, it has come, this scheme is under the voluntary sector. It is not a regulatory requirement, but this scheme has been developed voluntarily, looking at the needs, feeling what is needed. And therefore, CDSA THSTI is the owner of the scheme, and it is doing the certification. And therefore, again, in the overview presentation by Mr. Jauhri, he has explained about the logo. There needs to be a scheme logo and how it was developed and what is the concept behind the logo. Then the scheme owner lays down uniform evaluation and certification process, which has been documented and it is posted. Anybody can access that. It has certification bodies. As I've said, I'm not getting into the details of the personal certification body, but these bodies will take up the certification of the GCP professionals and any other GCP professionals and any other measure to promote certification and seek acceptability in both domestic and international market. Because GCP is a domain which is important across the globe, and therefore it will have, we are expecting acceptability both within the country as well as outside the country. We've had a couple of webinars and we have had huge response from organizations need for this. And the scheme owners in the documents, they have also prescribed the criteria and requirements for the training institutions. And all these documents, as I said, is already available on the website. So basically, I'm dividing my presentation into 3 parts. I will deal with the first, the certification process to be done by the certification bodies. Next will be the criteria which is necessary for any organization seeking to become a training institution, and then the system of how to get the provisional approval for the training institution. This is how I have divided the entire presentation, and all these documents are on the website already. The next slide, please. So this, I'm going on now to the certification process for the GCP professionals. Next one, please. So in this certification process, there are steps to be followed by the GCP professionals seeking certification. That means they have to apply, they have to undergo the assessment for demonstrating their competence. The assessment method, I will talk about it, and the decision of the certification after the assessment is done, whether a person has been successful and what is the decision. Then the certificate form, there is a certificate format. I'm not going into the details because all these documents are available on the website. I'm just highlighting the things which is more important. Then, as I said, there's a process of surveillance, recertification, Then, as I said, that they are under strict vigilance, and that is why surveillance assessment is conducted. And if anything wrong is found, then the certification is suspended and some inquiry is constituted, or the GCP professional is given a chance to respond to whatever the things are found, and it has raised a situation of a suspension and the cancellation of certification in extreme adverse cases. The next one, please. So Dr. Sanish Davis has already said what is the criteria for the competence assessment, and that is based on the minimum standard of competence. He has already dealt with the 6 domains. I'm just showing it to you. I'm not getting into the details. That has already been explained. So whenever the GCP professional's assessment is done for certification, it is based on these 6 core competence. And as Mr. Davis has already, Dr. Davis has said, that we have just started with the basic level. Once the scheme starts functioning and getting more and more popular, and when we feel the need, we will get into the advanced level. And for that advanced level, again, the minimum standard of competence will be revisited and it will be redefined for the advanced level. The next one, please. So what is the assessment method to be followed for the certification of the GCP professionals? It is basically here through multiple choice MCQs for testing the knowledge, and case studies to test the skill in the 6 domains of competence for the basic level. I've already mentioned we are right now beginning with the basic level. And for the basic level, there is no negative marking. Percentage for the success assessment would be carried out. Next one. Assessment team competence. Now, who are the people? Means when a personal certification body takes up these assessments, there has to be an assessment team. And what is the competence of those assessment team, or the so-called examiners? So first of all, there will be a minimum of 2 examiners. There can be more than that, but 2 is a must. They should have 2 examiners. And what is the competence? It has already been defined and it has been put in black and white. That is, there has to be a postgraduate degree in medical sciences or nursing or pharmaceutical, biological sciences, biostatistics, clinical data, whom they are assessing, and depending on that, they will choose the competence of the examiner. Now, they should have 5 years of work experience in clinical research after receiving the postgraduate degree. They should be GCP trained, and the team of personnel, that means examiner and question paper setters and even sometimes invigilators, to have overall collective competence for all the 6 domains, not necessarily invigilators, but basically examiners and the question paper setters. So this has been defined, and they should be, the certification body would follow this criteria to set up the assessment team. Next one, please. So the certification, the validity of this certificate is for 5 years. I have already said, for any personal certification, once you get certified, it's not that you're certified for lifelong. It has got a validity period. And if you feel, when you're nearing that 5 years period, around 4.5 years, if you feel you're benefited and you would like to continue with your certification, the certified professional has to apply for recertification. The successful GCP professional will also have a code of conduct for being certified. That is how also it is also a mandatory thing, this agreement, so that they follow some professional ethical conduct. In any, if any transition takes place in the standard, that means the minimum standard of competence, or any new regulatory requirement comes in, then the MSc, the existing MSc, would have to be aligned with those requirements. So again, this MSc document, as Dr. Sanish Davis has said, it's a very dynamic document. It will keep on changing as and when the need arises. And once these changes happen, it becomes the responsibility of the scheme owner to inform all the certification bodies who are certifying these professionals about the transitions, the alignment that has been done, the transition policy, because there is a minimum, when there's some changes happen, the scheme owner gives some time to make the alignment, make the changes. It is not that today I say it has changed and tomorrow you follow. No, there will be some sort of transition policy written down in black and white, and then they will follow that and they will complete the process of transition. Next slide, please. So as I said, there is a surveillance. So once you're certified, you have signed a code of conduct, and there is a surveillance assessment, and which happens during the 3rd year of your certification, because the full tenure of your certification is 5 years. So by 3rd year, there is a surveillance. And for the certified GCP professionals who have been constantly in a GCP work, so that actually gives the onus, because if he is working, if the person is working somewhere, the employer can be contacted, he can self-declare I'm working, there are some checks and measures. But if they are unable to provide any evidence of their working in the field of GCP, then they have to undergo the process of surveillance assessment. So this is how you keep a check or balance, as you said, and have you see that whether they are following all the protocols or the ethical professionalism that they are supposed to do. And if they're well within the thing and there's a surveillance assessment, they go through it. That's what it is. And can we have the next one, please? So once we undergo the surveillance, then comes the recertification. As I said, the validity is for 5 years period, and the recertification happens just within the 5 years period. And there are some details which is in the main document which are web hosted, but I am just giving you the in nutshell. That means when the recertification happens, then the performance of the certified GCP is renewed based on the assessment report for the surveillance work, the surveillance assessment. Then if there are certain things that were needed to be corrected, whether that has been completed, this corrective actions comes up during surveillance assessment. If the certificate has been has undergone any sort of suspension for some reason or other, that also is taken into cognizance. If any complaint is received against the professional, if any, what are the actions and how they have been sorted out, any sort of feedbacks or any sort of adverse information. So as I said, a GCP professional is certified for a period of 5 years, but there are checks and measures and balances, and one of them is the surveillance assessment, and after that is the recertification. They have to get recertified to keep the continuity of their certification. Next slide, please. And as I said, once after all these things, the suspension of the certification can also happen. It can happen, the certified GCP professional will receive a communication for suspension of certificate with due notice of 15 days after giving chance to respond. The professional is given that notice, and 15 days are given to him to make a personal hearing if needed. And the surveillance audit shows what are the reasons for suspension. The reasons could be surveillance audit shows unsatisfactory performance, any serious complaint or feedback, and if they're found to be valid, anybody can complain, but there has to be an inquiry on it. If it is found valid, then only suspension could happen. Any administrative requirements like payment of fees or some timely provision of other informations, or any violation of terms and conditions. So these are the conditions on which the suspension could happen. But again, I say it will only depend after all responses or the personal hearing, if at all needed. The next one. And after suspension, there is a cancellation could also happen. And there are again the same thing if the professional contravenes the terms and conditions of the certification and the provisions. Then if there were some corrective actions which were supposed to be taken and that has not been taken, any other administrative requirements, or the certificate may also be cancelled at the request of the certified. If the GCP professional who's been certified and somehow the professional feels it has not benefited him, he can also request and get his certificate cancelled, and then he has to return that certificate. Or any suspension and cancellation of certification, and this if it has suspended or cancelled the certificate, the certification body as well as the scheme owner will put up on the website that such and such person with this number and this certificate has been either suspended or it has been cancelled. So everything in the public domain with due knowledge to everybody. And there's a process of complaints and appeals also. And the candidate, if they are unhappy with the functioning of this appeal for the reconsideration of any adverse decision. So these are the processes for getting certified as a professional of GCP. Now I come to the next part, the second part of the presentation. Can I go on to the next slide, please? So now I would be talking about the GCP training institutions and what are the criteria which is essential to become a training institution. So I'll just talk about those things. Next one, please. So what are the salient features for any training, any institution to function as a GCP training institution? They have to assess institutions and their programs for meeting defined quality standards. We have already defined the quality minimum standards. Now, how they align themselves. And the training institute to foster excellence in the TI and building effectiveness in delivering competency-based training. We have discussed the competency standard. So that is how they would deliver. To establish a framework for continuous improvement and provide opportunity to benchmark with other institutions, which right now what has happened is, why did this scheme come up? Because there are a lot of GCP training institutions across the country and everywhere, but everybody has their own set of training programs. So this scheme is going to bring about a benchmarking and a uniformity. And to facilitate developing the professional competence of the GCP professionals and to provide the basis for determining eligibility for assistance and investment for public funds by government regulatory bodies. So these are the salient features which a training institute should have if they are aspiring to become a training institution for GCP training programs. Next one. And then the GCP training, as has already been spoken by the earlier speaker, it is not a regulatory requirement or it is not mandatory at the moment, but there is a great requirement and a lot of training programs are going on. And there are many training institutions in the country, and they are also aspiring now, as we get the feedback, to come into the scheme for their own benchmarking and proper functioning under a uniform system. The GCP professionals can acquire competence by any means that he chooses. I have already said there is no particular method, but it has to align itself to the minimum standard of competence and function. And the TI should not give that impression. This is very, very important, that the training institution should not give an impression that the use of learning service would provide any advantage to the applicant. Because there is there's some false notion that a particular training institute, when they come, they are very successful and then they go for certification, they'll get certified. No, it is nothing of that sort. All training institutes, as per the scheme owners, would be the same. And what are the criteria to come up as a training institute? There should be the governance. The institution should have a strong governing structure. They should have very good learning service requirements. Then they should have a system of performance measurements and continuous improvement, and they should also have an inbuilt system of complaints and appeals. Next one. Now, in the governance structure, there are many points, and these are all on the website. There are documents, well-defined documents. I'm not going into all of them, but I'm just taking up a few points from here, and I'll just go on to the next slide, and I will only take 4 of the points out of all these things, which are the requirements for any governance structure. Next one. So there is a requirement of leadership. What is the requirement? What the TI shall establish and follow methods to determine the needs and expectations of having a good leadership thing, especially in respect to the curriculum development. And it is not necessarily, I should not be even reading out, but there should be a good facility, especially the infrastructure should be good, and they should be as per the standards requirement. Then there should be enough finances to run. It's not that you do 1 or 2 training programs mandatory, but still if there are any requirements, then the training institute should identify and comply with any applicable statutory or regulatory requirements. So these are the 4 very essential ones. Other ones are also defined in the documents which are already on the website. Now, the other requirement is the learning for the learning services. That means there should be the development of training program. If you're a training institute for GCP professionals, you should have a very robust training program. And as has already been said earlier, right now we have started with the basic level training program. And the basic level training program, when you go into the website and look at the minimum standard of competence, the basic level training program is for 2 days. So you have to figure out, based on the training institutions have to figure out, based on the minimum standard of competence, how they will develop and what is the distribution of the number of hours for each domain is all described, well defined, and the competence requirement of the trainers have also been defined. It is clearly defined that they should be having postgraduate degree in medical sciences, nursing, pharmacological sciences, biological sciences, biostatistics, and clinical data management. Again, 5 years of experience. It is the same as the requirement for the certification body. So it is the same all across for both the training institutions as well as the certification body. So I've read this requirement in the earlier one also for the certification body. It remains the same. GCP trained, and then for training institutions, maybe they will also have examiners, trainers, question paper setters to have an overall collective competence to follow the 6 domains. So this is the requirement of the learning services and the requirement of the competence of the trainers. Next one. So then there should be a training methodology. I think that is well defined everywhere. Every program needs a well-defined training methodology, and I have just written it down. That means to transfer the knowledge and skills effectively, an appropriate MSc topic-specific training methodology should be adopted, and it should have a cycle of explaining, demonstrating, feedback, practice, evaluation, problem solving related inputs, and it should be very, very well defined, very concrete and uniformly. So it is the requirement of how you develop the training methodology. Next one. And then based on when we started the GCP professional certification scheme in January 2020, we did not envisage much about how the pandemic would create a havoc across the world. But then we realized that we need to have a component where we actually added on the requirement, and then we said we should have provision for online training programs. And looking at the entire thing, It was also heavily debated, and it was decided that each batch, if you're having online training programs, if the institutes decides on that, they should be having batches with not more than 25 trainees, because bigger the batch, it becomes more cumbersome. And then the trainers would be, the institution as well as the trainees would be informed about the bandwidth requirements, that is for any online program. And what is essential is it should be live, it should not be pre-recorded, and there should be more of interactive sessions. And but throughout training cycle, the entire course curriculum teaching will be recorded, because if there is any complaint or appeal, people can go back to the recorded documents and look at it. And then the duration of each session may be increased by 10% compared to the hours defined in the MSc document, because we have to remember this is an online training program. For example, today I'm not able to connect my laptop. So there could be some hitches, some glitches. We are living in a virtual world, so we cannot just simply go by the strictest of definition given in the MSc document, but the timings can be extended by 10% if it is necessary. The next one, please. And then, of course, based upon the training conducted, they will have some sort of results in the form of feedbacks and how the training has happened. And if there are any, depending upon the feedback, the training institutions can also sort of take corrective actions for them. And there is a system of feedback in the entire documentation, and that is also given. I have given here the page numbering. It's a 9-page document, and on page 8 there is a provision of how the feedback can be given, and based on this feedback from the trainings or other stakeholders, necessary corrective actions to be taken by the training institutions. Next one. There is a mechanism of performance measurements and improvement for any training institution, that there is a need for continual improvement, which I need not emphasize. And that is very, very essential. And this mainly comes from the feedbacks or the interactions, or wherever possible for effective management systems and other mechanisms. There should be an inbuilt mechanism of continuous improvement for any training institutions. I'm not getting into the other things also, like general improvement, management review, corrective actions. Everybody knows that any good institute should have all these mechanisms. Next one. And again, here, everywhere, this entire ISO system has a very great emphasis on complaints and appeals. It is not just a one-sided process. There is a distinctive provisions. In fact, during the assessments, we also check whether the organizations, they have this component inbuilt, whether they have it web hosted on the website. Anybody can complain, any appeal can come in. So the component of complaint and appeal is very, very important. Again, here also, it is described. Okay, so this till now I have spoken about the criteria which is necessary for any organization who would be thinking of becoming a training institution for GCP professional certification system. So that those were the criteria. And now I go on for a few slides to explain how the system of provisional approval, because that is how CDSA, being the scheme owner, on the website there are also application forms which can be downloaded, and then entire instructions are given and checklists are given, and the institutions who would be applying would be filling in and giving those things. And then I am just getting into the details how we go on after receiving an application, how the process of provisional approval happens, what are the different steps. So can I get on to the next slide, please? So as I said, the Good Clinical Practice Professional Certification Scheme aims at providing a model for GCP professionals' quality practice and performance through the independent, competent training institutions, which can deliver the requisite elements of relevant training as per the scheme criteria. I have already described the criteria in the earlier few slides. The training institutions providing the training must conduct the training on its own and not have any subcontracted in part or in full. So that is very important. Next one. What is the scope? How we go on to the assessment? To ensure that the training institutes are able to perform as expected as per the scheme criteria of the scheme owner. Who is the scheme owner for us? It is the CDSA THSTI. They have to demonstrate the ability to consistently show their competency in the required domain for the GCP professionals training program. I have already described what are the criteria for the training institute, and that is what is meant by this line. And to enhance the trainees' satisfaction through effective application of the process of continual improvement. I've already discussed in this last section that there is a very important part. That means the continual improvement, and there are mechanisms defined how it should be performed. And all requirements of the training to be applied uniformly for all the training institutes, regardless of their type or size. Even a big, very well-established also has to follow the same uniform process. What has been defined in a training institute seeking accreditation should address the following dimensions. What are those? That means there should be a very strong commitment of the top management for effective management of the entire training institute. There should be infrastructure support and support facilities. I've already talked about it in the last section. There should be design, development, and effective delivery of the training programs. We have talked about in the learning program development in the earlier section, and performance evaluation and improvement, how it can be done. So all these things have been dealt with in the earlier section. The next one. Next slide, please. Now, after a training institute has filled up the application to the scheme owner, which is CDSA THSTI, comes the process of, first comes the document review, that when you submit the document for a provisional approval, there is a team who will review the documents. Then comes, after the document review, comes the office assessment. And the third component is the witness assessment, that the assessors would go and see on site how the institution is conducting the training. In case of the training institutes having multiple branches or centers from where the same training is delivered, the team will decide, the office assessment team will decide which location to go to. So if it is multiple locations, they can choose at their convenience of both the parties where to go for the witness assessment. Next, provisional approval. So document review is done by the assessment team nominated by the G.C.P Secretariat. The assessment team reviews the documented systems of TI against the scheme requirements. As I said, there are documents on the website which defines the requirement. One is the criteria I've just defined just before this section, and this is the system. And you have the minimum standard of competence. So based on that, the entire process has been developed, and that is being reviewed. And the assessment team, after it has done the review, informs the secretariat, and they can then set up the office assessment. They just go onto the on-site. Of course, in case of pandemic, sometimes we are doing remotely also, but that is called the office assessment. So the next step, the next slide, please. The next step is, after document review comes the office assessment, and in the office assessment, the process of training of the GC professionals as per the training for the scheme effectively, and the institution should show that they understand the requirements which have to be maintained for the provisional approval, and train the GCP professional only under the scheme. So that is very, very essential, and shall have a process, as I said, I've said earlier also, there should be a process of appeals and complaints. So I'm putting in nutshell what will be looked at by the assessment team during office assessment. So they will go through all the documents that have been submitted, and this is how the office assessment is carried out. Next one, please. Now this for the office assessment, as I have already said, the training institute should have the names of the trainers whom they have selected based on the competence criteria. I'm not going to get into details. I have already talked about it twice earlier. So these are the competence of the trainers, and the assessment team will look at the competence of the trainers, whether the training institute have selected the right trainers for imparting the training, and all other requirements. Next one, please. And once the office assessment, the assessment team is satisfied with the office assessment and they think the training institute has got the competence to conduct the trainings, they will set up the witness assessment date, and they will go for a witness, which means they will sit through the entire 2 days. The assessment team will sit through the entire 2 days to see how they are conducting the training. They will just watch and make notes. So that is what is called the witness assessment. And they will also see whatever has been defined in the scheme document for the criteria, whatever the training institute has defined in their documentation, whether everything is being followed. If there is some discrepancies, some non-conformities would come up, and they would like to discuss on that, and then those non-conformities have to be acted upon and they have to be closed. So this 3 processes actually completes the process of assessment for any provisional approval. The next slide, please. So that is how after all these 3 steps, now comes the provisional approval. This provisional approval is granted by the scheme owner. After, if there are any, as I said, if there are any non-conformities, they have to be acted upon and closed. And the approval is given after requisite fees are paid by the organization to the scheme owner secretariat. The approval is valid for a duration of 3 years. For the GCP professionals, the certification validity period is 5 years, but the approval for training institutions to function as a training institute, that validity period is 3 years. And once a year, surveillance assessment will happen to see whether everything is being conducted the way the documentation has written or suggested. And there will be a witness assessment. And if necessary, it's not always essential, but if some reason arises, some surprise assessment can also happen. And the provisional approval shall automatically expire at the end of the validity period unless formal approval to full criteria is obtained in the time by the concerned training institution. So right now I'm talking about provisional approval because that is the first step for any training institutes to start functioning. The next one, please. Then here also there is this mechanism of suspension of approval, similar sort of thing if it happens, like if there's a non-compliance or violation of some of the scheme criteria, or improper use of the scheme logo, certification mark. There are also rules laid down for this. It is not that I'm talking at random. On the website, there are rules for the usage of these logos and the marks. So people have to read that and follow that. And whenever a provisional approval is given, the institution also signs an agreement to follow whatever are the do's and don'ts. So it will go by that. And if there are any major changes in the training material in the program without the consent of the scheme owner, then that also becomes an issue, or any sort of non-payment of fees. So these are various grounds on which this can happen, but it's not a very normal procedure, but this also can happen. The next one, please. And there is a fee structure for all this, and the current fee structure of these various components of the assessment as is there on the website, and people can go and have a look at it. There are certain fees, application fees, office assessment fees, witness fees. So all these things are given there, and people can go and have a look. The next, please. So I think it was pretty long, and I tried to explain in more or less in a very short period of time. But all that what I have spoken is everything is on the website. The detailed documents are there, so people can go visit those the website and read the documents and come up with it. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Great, madam. Nice learning. Nice learning. Mesmerizing experience. It is absolutely learning for us, and we all are interested to join hands with your THSTI and every organization. Dr. Jayesh.
Thank you, madam, for your excellent presentation. It was indeed really wonderful, and we came to know lots of things. And surely we would like to have you, madam, again and again for the future sessions. Now, moving on to our next session, we have with us Dr. Pawan Kumar Sharma, sir. Sir is clinical research expert. He is president of IRES, Independent Research Ethics Society, convener and Aushadhi Nirmata Prakostha Vishwa Ayurved Parishad, vice president in ADMAI, and AVP in HCD Emami Ltd, Jandu. Let me take the pleasure to welcome sir for his presentation. With love and regard, sir, you are welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Jayesh, for nice introduction. I would like to welcome. I am host also, a speaker also. I don't know what to do, but I am again grateful to all of you that I am speaking in front of you. Thank you. Thank you, organizers, and Dr. Jayesh. Today, we have learnt about all registration and excellent. What should I do? So, in this contest, I would like to inform few points to my policymakers that from last 212, we have our ethics society, ethics committee, as well as G.C.P training center from last 10 years. I would like to present the concept for what we started it and what we want to do with guidance of Debjani ji, Jauhri ji, and definitely Davis ji. So please allow me to share my presentation. We started our journey in 2012 by Independent Research Ethics Society. Here, policymakers are here. So I would like to raise some points also what we faced there. We went to society registrar, because we wanted to introduce Clean Ethics Committee, Independent Ethics Committee in West Bengal. But registrar of society denied that. So we formed Independent Research Ethics Society to create Independent Ethics Committee. Previously, the members were from Ayurveda. So here also, we were refused by CDSCO that Ayurveda Ethics Committee or Ethics Society is not under the purview of CDSCO, and we have to go to Ayush Ministry. Went there. Ayush Ministry told me that no regulation is there, no provision of registration of ethics committee is available till date in Ayurveda or Ayush. So again, we have to reconstitute it. I'm not going into the long, but we had to reconstitute committee, invited modern experts, and now, fortunately, after a struggle of 8 years, or moreover 9 years, we have been approved by CDSCO last year in 2020. I am grateful to CDSCO and relevant organizations. Independent Research Ethics Society had a society constitution where we were told that no, it may be that you have constituted this society for ethics committee, but the sponsor organization must not have more than 50% of the members. So you have to appoint members from outside. So again, it was reconstituted. So I would like to introduce in brief, within 6 or 7 minutes, our aim. We need your support, we need your guidance to have it at real international level by virtue of Lord Shiva and blessings of all seniors for awareness, education and research from last 2012 to this 2021. From last 10 years, 9 years, we are approving clinical research projects. It is being documented and ethics committee is working. Society has its objective research. I am not going to detail and don't read out these slides, but it also we have in our tie-up, we have well-established labs, well-established pathology labs. So in product development, also we are supporting SSI to our extent. Education, we are issuing very comprehensive certificate after training of 3 or 4 days in past years before Corona. Now physical training, we are not planning yet because the Corona pandemic or physical distance or social activity, various social activities we are doing. We are providing, we are honoring our senior most Vadyas from Lifetime Achievement Award, Maharshi Charak Samman, and so on. Various quiz competitions, various academic competitions we are conducting, and we are providing prizes, and we are honoring our senior Vadyas or doctors also in all over India and abroad also. Awareness, we are doing camps, everything, what can we do and what can be done. Definitely, recently, we have Central Research Institute also for distribution and data recording of this iOS 64 and Sansamani Bhatti also. We are grateful to Vishwa Ayurved person. I am National Executive and State Coordinator of Convener of Vishwa Ayurved person. So they are also supporting in our aims and objects. Ethics Committee. Our Ethics Committee is very unique, where the chairperson is ex-Director Medical Education of West Bengal, KOLKATA. He is MD Pharmacology. He was principal in 5 medical colleges here in West Bengal, and then was director, ex-director, medical education, and he is our guide and mentor for this project. Dr. Shantanu Munshi, MD Pharmacology, DM Clinical Pharmacology. He is basic medical scientist. He is professor and head, Department of Pharmacology, now transferred to School of Tropical Medicine, KOLKATA. Very renowned person. And both of them are with us for last 30 years for clinical research, what I was conducting for Emami, Jandu and Himani brands. Dr. Kalyan Brad Bhattacharya, MD, DM, MAMS, FIAN, FRCP, neurologist, chief neurologist, head of the department of Medica Super Specialty Hospital. So he is our clinician. Myself, having 33 years experience of clinical research, for more than 250 plus, because I have developed for Emami Jhandu more than 250 plus product, and every product was researched on toxicity trial also, and for under development clinical research also, and after marketing, post marketing surveillance also. So this small experience of 33 years after passing by top in Jamnagar University in MD Rasastra and Bhasaj Kalpana in 1989. Mr. Nisikant Sinha is social scientist. Mr. Amal Chandra Das is advocate, MA LLB. Mr. Subhajit Chakravarti, layperson without affiliation, and Ms. Momita Sharma, woman representative. So we have constituted this committee as per the constitution and approval of reconstitution and again reconstitution objections. We have been able to approve this by CDSCO. We are grateful to CDSCO. But unfortunately, the communication system is not well defined with the CDSCO. I would like to learn with speakers also that how this ethics committee will regular update CDSCO and can receive guidance and direction from CDSCO regularly. This I am facing problem. But then also I am communicating my approvals to CDSCO from last so many years, but unfortunately no reply has been received till date. So this is the problem. We had lost in this journey of 10 years, we had lost our members, senior late Professor Vijan Kumar Gupta ji, he was PhD, Professor late Dr. Pradeep Kumar Devnath ji, he was MDIO and PhD from BHU in pharmacology. Dr. Jaydev Chattopadhyay, he was also PhD in Ayurveda. Dr. Yogiraj Vijay Chaturvedi, he was also founder of Devarsi Yogpit. Now, in this corona pandemic, we started a series of webinars to negate the negativity of pandemic. With our international committee, we are grateful to all seniors that we have patrons, guides, ex-directors, head, board of CCIM governor, members. Everybody has his blessing from international perspective also and national perspective also. And everybody has demanded regularly, because in 10 years we have observed fake G.C.P certificate arranged by some association, unknown association, which was one training was organized, sir, before 7 years, and we are having this certificate. Now the rule is there that it should be renewed in 3 years, every 3 years. But there are no organization to fulfill this demand of certification and recertification of G.C.P persons or training. Now, I am really grateful to the government, CDSCO, means THSTI, जो भी इसमें लगी हुई है बॉडीज, उसका मैं बहुत दिल से धन्यवाद करता हूं. Really, I am enlightened today that government is thinking beyond our imagination and they are trying to regulate this also. So, we have faculty, very senior faculty, very reputed faculty of pharmacology, basic principles, and clinics. Various clinicians are attached to our society also. So, just within a few seconds, advisory board, national advisory board, international advisory board, we have a set of experts and dignitaries blessing us for this project. And everywhere the demand is that government has, I'm not talking about GCP only, first project is GCP, but government has notified GXP, and I have gone through the list of GXP. There are approximately 34 GXPs. Good administration practice, good documentation practice, good laboratory practice, good distribution practice, every dot. But there is no system of training for any guideline in my knowledge, up to my knowledge. I may be the wrong. So, with your kind blessings now, have decided unanimously to launch International Interdisciplinary Institute for Research, Education and Skills, which is required for now industry and CROs also. In this context, initially, first of all, our main focus is on GCP training. We have 1,000 square feet physical area. We have competent team. We have tie-up with classrooms, with projectors and boards. So we have every infrastructure. Now in this digital world, there is no need to have a big institute of 10 floors or 20 floors. This corona has taught us well that everything can be done in the 9th floor of Emami office. Today also 5th floor is seized, but turnover is increasing. So I'm thinking about, we are planning about first this digital platform. We are discussing with digital platforms of Vidu, Tichi, Proctor, and we will be finalizing it soon by December, so we can launch this institute by January 1st. This is a guidance for us that only live courses should be there. Thank you for right time guidance, because in the market, the GCP is being sold as a funny item. GCP certification can be obtained in 4 hours course by paying 2,000-3,000 rupees without any training, without any scoring, without any test. Everything is automatic. Product is available. Anybody can download, and that will also be seen after obtaining certificate. The person may not have the time to view before certification. It may be there. So we have decided to launch scientific with excellent faculty, well-reputed faculty with knowledge, good clinical practice, good manufacturing practice, good pharmacovigilance practice, good clinical laboratory practice, good laboratory practice, good distribution practice, good publication practice, clinical data management, clinical trial risk management. When we are fortunate to have the faculty of international standard, we have decided to start these courses. First, we will start our institute with GCP course, and every course is related with pharma industry, not only Ayush. It is not focused on Ayush only, because it is for all, for international students also. We will be discussing about ICH GCP, WHO GCP, where their Ayurveda comes into the picture. But it is already applicable to Ayurvedic industry also, what CCIR said informed. I am not going to the detail of the courses, but these are our vision, madam. These are our vision, sir, Jauhri sir. Under your leadership, under your guidance, various international experts are also blessing us, and under your guidance and leadership, we want to launch this institute up to the level of your satisfaction, not your satisfaction, sir, of international society also. Kindly guide us at every step. We will try to make this institute as definitely the best institute, best online institute, not fake institute, not giving any download or this certificate selling. We are not interested for that. What we want, because I have faced this problem in Emami. Emami, everybody is fresh. We have to train every person, every industry, not Emami, because industry-oriented trainings are not there in such a quantity, in such a number, which can fulfill the demand of the industry executives. In laboratory, in pharmacovigilance, in distribution, wherever it may be. But the suitable form of training, suitable system of training, and international recognition of that training is very necessary. And with this dream, we want to start this institute, not for selling the courses like others are selling. GCP courses are available from 2 lectures to 20 lectures, from 3,000 rupees to 8,000 rupees. It is available anyone can go to the site and download those materials along with the certificates when he has seen, whether he has seen those videos, whether he has trained them, that in that particular course, it is not there, I hope. So we don't want to sell these products, but we want to make this institute as flagship institute, all with digital, physical, lab, and practical facility. We will provide our candidates practical facility also with digital, because we have ethics committee, we have Jhandu Emami manufacturing unit, we have our Med Pharma CRO, which is CRO for organizing researches. So research projects are also going on there. So hands-on training can also be provided. Beyond these courses, basic online courses are also planned. Certificate course in Ayurvedic nutrition and diet, basic fundamentals of Ayurveda, and all these courses we will try to make all the courses live and up to the demand and interest of the society and our guides and well-wishers. We will be increasing the number of sources. But our main course focus will be on pharma industry and Ayurveda, both. So please bless us with our, bless us to fulfill our dream under your guidance, under your valuable mentorship, so we can definitely prove ourselves up to level of your satisfaction, and you will also feel proud to approve our institute or to support us, because the faculty is of international standard and all are blessing by heart to develop this society for pharma, for industry, for SSI, for MSI, which cannot train the individual candidates. Thank you. Thank you. Needs your blessing, support, guidance, mentorship every time on every step to launch this institute as per the level of your satisfaction. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Hello. Thank you, sir.
Yes, you are audible.
Thank you, sir, for your brief introduction and excellent presentation. We all are excited to hear more from IRES and the courses to begin soon. So now, may I request that let's have a lots of dignitaries joining us, from Professor Agnihotri to Dr. Vishnu Prasad Sharma, Dr. Surya Prakash ji, and lots of people have joined us for the discussion. Now we can have an open session with the permission of our host, Dr. Sharma sir. So any questions or any points to discuss are open in this open session. We welcome it.
इंडस्ट्री के रिप्रेजेंटेटिव और मुखिया के रूप में हमारे साथ डॉक्टर जेपी सिंह जी हैं। मैं उनसे आशीर्वाद लेना चाहूंगा कि क्या इस तरह के इंस्टीट्यूट्स की जरूरत है इंडस्ट्री को, आयुष इंडस्ट्री को। आदरणीय
डॉक्टर पवन जी, आपको बहुत बहुत साधुवाद है। आपका जो लेक्चर, आपने जो ये पिछले 10 साल से काम किया है और आपने डिफरेंट कोर्सेज, उसका माइक्रो जो वर्क जो आप बना रहे हैं और ऑनलाइन बना रहे हैं, दैट इज द नीड ऑफ द फार्मा सेक्टर, और विशेष करके आयुष सेक्टर जिसके अंदर माइक्रो और स्मॉल इंडस्ट्रीज काफी हैं। तो मैं समझता हूँ कि ये आप जो कुछ भी कर रहे हैं ये बहुत अच्छा कर रहे हैं, और इससे जो है हमारी इंडस्ट्री डेवलप करेगी। और जो एक फोबिया ऐसा बना हुआ है कि आयुर्वेदिक मेडिसिन जो है अच्छा काम नहीं करती, या उनका कोई स्टैंडर्ड नहीं है, या उनकी जो प्रेजेंटेशन नहीं है, उनका जो डॉक्यूमेंटेशन नहीं है, कई तरह के पेपर्स के अंदर एलिगेशन जाते हैं। ये जो एलोपैथिक फार्मा वाले हैं या वर्ल्ड वाइड भी जो भी हमारी जो होती है उस सब में जो है ना ये बहुत सहायता करेगा। और मैं समझता हूँ कि ये जो आपने ये एक अच्छा बीड़ा उठाया हुआ है कि आयुष डिपार्टमेंट को या आयुष विभाग को आपने एक ऊंचाई तक लेके जाना है, इसके लिए हम सभी का आपको साथ सहयोग रहेगा। और इसमें चाहे एडमा हो, चाहे अमाम हो, चाहे एडमा हो, कोई भी हो, और ये छोटे से लेके बड़े तक के लिए सबके लिए जो है ये एक बहुत ही बड़ी अच्छी आपकी जो शुरुआत आपने की है। और ये जो आपका वैसे प्रोफेशनली आपका एक्सपीरियंस जो 33 साल का है वो बहुत बड़ा है। फिर यूर विद इमामी एंड झंडू, उसको आपको क्लासिकल प्रोप्राइटरी सभी का बहुत अच्छा अनुभव है। फिर आपने इतने सारे मेडिसिन के ऊपर जो रिसर्च भी की है, जो आपने क्लिनिकल रिसर्च की है, सेफ्टी और एफिकेसी का जो किया है वो भी बहुत ही सराहनीय काम है। तो मैं समझता हूँ कि जो एक होता है ना कि एक बुढ़ापे में आके, वैसे अभी आप बूढ़े नहीं हो मेरे जैसे, पर ये है कि एक जब एक सेटिस्फेक्शन हो जाती है ना जिंदगी के अंदर कि मैंने ये काम कर लिया है, 33 साल का आपका जो निस्वार्थ सेवा आपने इंस्टीट्यूशन को दिया हुआ, और ये जो 250 वेबिनार आपने किए हैं, ये भी एक निस्वार्थ भावना से आप काम कर रहे हैं। तो मैं समझता हूँ कि जीवन के इस पड़ाव के अंदर किसी भी सिस्टम के, हम अगर आप MD आयुर्वेदा जामनगर से हैं या इमामी में लगे हुए हैं या झंडू में लगे हुए हैं, तो ये सब आयुर्वेद की देन है, आयुष की देन है। तो इस हमारा एक कर्तव्य बन जाता है कि जिस सिस्टम से हमने वाइस प्रेसिडेंट बनाया, जिस सिस्टम ने मुझे पवन शर्मा की एक रिकॉग्निशन दी है, तो उस सिस्टम के प्रति समर्पण की भावना से जो है हम एक काम करें। एक कहावत है कि आप भी श्रेष्ठ बनो और दूसरों को भी श्रेष्ठ बनाओ। तो आपका ये जो कर्तव्य है कि दूसरों को भी श्रेष्ठ बनाना है, अपने लिए तो हर कोई करता है, समाज के लिए जो आप कर रहे हो उसके लिए आपको बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद है। और मेरी बेस्ट विशेष है कि आप इसके अंदर बिल्कुल कामयाब होंगे और कोशिश करेंगे कि इसके अंदर जहां में हमारे किसी तरह के सहयोग की जरूरत होगी या हमारे एसोसिएशन की जरूरत होगी या और एसोसिएशन जो है वो सब मिलके सभी लोग जो है लाभान्वित हों। इसी कामना के साथ आपको बहुत बहुत बधाई, बहुत बहुत बधाई, धन्यवाद।
बहुत बहुत आभार सर, बहुत बहुत आभार, आपका बहुत बहुत आभार। मैं अब पूरा लेक्चर होने के बाद मैं सर से जौहरी सर से गाइडेंस लूंगा। उसके पहले मैं कनाडा से डॉक्टर हरीश वर्मा जी से पूछना चाहता हूँ। वो वहाँ एक स्कूल चलाते, कॉलेज चलाते हैं आयुर्वेद का, आयुर्वेद की एसोसिएशन के प्रेसिडेंट हैं, और वहाँ एक सिलेबस को लेके कुछ उनके मन में कंफ्यूजन भी था। यदि हरीश वर्मा जी अभी लाइन में है तो मैं कृपा कर हरीश वर्मा जी से 2 मिनट आशीर्वाद लेना चाहूंगा। डॉक्टर हरीश वर्मा जी फ्रॉम कनाडा, आयुर्वेद एसोसिएशन, आयुर्वेद कॉलेज here in Canada. He is not on the line, I hope. So I would like to request now Professor Vaidya Parul Joshi ji, ex-principal Ayurvedic College from Ayurveda side. Please, if you are, I am audible to you, please guide us whether this institute will help your Ayurvedic academics also, and it will be supportive to Ayurvedic physical colleges, not competitor of them.
Sure. I'm sure of it. With you sitting there, Sirji, it's actually going to happen. And I think that in coming years, the students, specifically the postgraduate and PhD students, will also benefit from this. You have a wonderful legacy and a wonderful future. Wish you all the best, sir, to you, Jhandu and Emami. Thank you, sir. Thank you for very good sessions.
Dr. Rajendra Khatabkar, PMS, LLB, LLM from Mumbai. Dr. Rajendra Khatabkar.
Am I audible, sir?
Yes, whether institute is needed or not.
Yes, definitely. It's a demand of era. If you want to survive, sustain, for as this sciences has a historical origin since last 5,000 years. If you want to prevail in the current era, you have to prove yourself, and your efficacy and everything has to be proved. So it's a need, and we have to be proved true and efficacious on the scientific background. So it's a must. and good initiative, Dr. Pawan Sharma, you have taken, and all of us are with you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Khatapkar. Thank you.
As initial part, I joined on YouTube, so I joined here to just to comment.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Before concluding remarks, I would like to go request again Anil Jauhri sir. Anil Jauhri sir, please आप आशीर्वाद दीजिए. आपके आशीर्वाद की बहुत बड़ी आवश्यकता है. आपके 41 साल का एक्सपीरियंस यदि हमें लीड करे और मेंटर हमारा हो तो निश्चित ये सब डिग्निटरी एक पॉजिटिव दिशा में बढ़ेंगी और निश्चित हम समाज को कुछ न कुछ अच्छा कंट्रीब्यूट करके जाएंगे. हम लोग एक नेक्स्ट जनरेशन के हाथ में एक अच्छा इंस्टीट्यूट आपके सपनों के अनुसार छोड़ के जाएं, ऐसी हमारी इच्छा है. काइंडली गाइड अस सर. जौहरी सर.
Sure, Dr. Sharma. I'll be happy to help in any way that you want. आजकल यही मेरा काम है कि अब जितना एक्सपीरियंस गैदर करना था वो कर लिया. अब दिस इज टाइम टू हेल्प द सोसाइटी. So I'll be happy to support you in whatever way you wish. And all the best to you.
सर अपना जीसीपी इंस्टीट्यूट अपने कानून के हिसाब से दूसरे भी कोर्स चला सकता है ना सर?
एब्सोल्युटली. सिर्फ जीसीपी के लिए आप सीडीएस से जा सकते हैं एक्रेडिटेशन के लिए, और बाकी और ट्रेनिंग करेंगे प्लीज गो अहेड. और अगर आयुर्वेदा रिलेटेड ट्रेनिंग करेंगे तो जो नया बोर्ड आयुर्वेदा का बनाया है, आयुर्वेदा ट्रेनिंग एक्रेडिटेशन बोर्ड, वहां पे जाके उसका एंडोर्समेंट लीजिए.
जी सर, वो दोनों ही साइमल्टेनियसली होंगे.
अगर योगा पे करेंगे तो योगा सर्टिफिकेशन बोर्ड ऑलरेडी चल रहा है जिसमें योगा ट्रेनिंग सेंटर्स का एक्रेडिटेशन किया जा रहा है ऑलरेडी.
अच्छा.
हाँ,
बहुत अच्छा. आज की जो जानकारी थी सर रियली आई ओपनिंग थी. हमें तो यूं लगा कि भगवान के आशीर्वाद से आप लोगों का प्रसाद मिल गया और ये इंस्टीट्यूट के जो एक कल्पना थी वो मूर्त रूप में आ जाएगी. आप लोग बस
बिल्कुल. एक अब जो है डॉक्टर अनुपम श्रीवास्तव जो राष्ट्रीय आयुर्वेद विद्यापीठ के हैं उनसे बात की जाए. वो अभी विदेश गए हुए हैं. और एक प्रोग्राम जो है वो आयुर्वेदा ट्रेनिंग एक्रेडिटेशन बोर्ड के बारे में भी किया जाए कि उनका क्या प्रोसेस है और क्या किया जा सकता है आयुर्वेदा ट्रेनिंग.
जरूर सर. उनके विदेश से लौटने के बाद अनुपम जी भी हमारे मित्र हैं, छोटे भाई हैं, वर्षों से संपर्क है. निश्चित हम लोग उसको करेंगे और उससे भी हमें जानकारी मिलेगी डेफिनेटली. उसका पूरा मतलब कोई भी कहीं से साउंड नहीं हुई और कोई हिला नहीं. ये पहली वेबिनार थी सर जिसमें सब लोग इतने उत्सुक थे सुनने के लिए. मैं आपको बहुत धन्यवाद देता हूं. आपको भी, देवेश जी को भी और मैडम देवजानी जी को भी. तीनों ने इतना अच्छा सुंदर रूप से हम लोगों को गाइड किया. लेकिन बस यही है, मैं सभी डॉक्टर से जो जीसीपी में है इस कार्यक्रम के माध्यम से आग्रह करता हूं कि वो अपने आप को एनरोल कराएं, अपने आप को प्रूव करें कि हाँ वो जीसीपी एनरोल्ड हैं, एक्सपर्ट हैं. ये मैं आग्रह आप लोगों की ओर से करता हूं. और अब मैं कंक्लूडिंग रिमार्क वैद्य जयेश ठक्कर को बहुत धन्यवाद देता हूं मॉडरेशन के लिए. उनसे आग्रह करता हूं कि समापन के लिए वो अग्निहोत्री जी को निमंत्रित करें.
Thank you, sir. Really, today's program was very learning and eye-opening session, and we wish the whole team and everybody to support us in future program. Now, for our concluding remarks, let me take the pleasure to welcome Professor Agnihotri sir from Haridwar. Sir is professor in Swasthyavid Department in Ayurvedic College, Haridwar. Let me welcome sir for the concluding remarks.
Thank you, Vaidya Jayesh Thakkar ji. It's a very good evening to all of us. I think it's not a day for the remarks. It's a day for receiving the blessings of such a great persons like Dr. Anil Jauhri ji, who enlightened us in the terms of all the development needed for the GCP, for the certification, for its valuation, and for really its validity. And I think that Dr. Anil Jauhri's 40 years, he was not speaking, his 40 years experience was speaking, and also speaking was the working. He is holding a lot of dignitary posts. And I think Dr. Anil Jauhri, along with Dr. Sanish, and Madam Debjani. These information
वीडियो ऑफ
for
कर लीजिए डॉक्टर साहब, नेट कमजोर है.
okay. These three lectures were actually complementary to each other as far as the knowledge is concerned. They all complemented all the informations with all their modalities and probable lacunas and the support. I think he made very clear, and I am of the opinion that one thing which is very valuable, that the valuation of trainers will be there. Working output of the manufacturers will be there with the way of survey. So these are very good things. Then only we can maintain the quality of the product and all that. Now I come on your presentation. Your experience of 35 years is also speaking like anything, and that was given a good sadhuvat to you by every senior persons. But your today's proposal in a form of the proposed international institute, I think you are doing nothing. You are doing nothing new. The fact is that you might have completed a lot of matran and pitran by your own activities, and this is going to happen to pay off the Guru as you entered your life with a BMS, with MD, with the Hindu, with Imami. Now you have reached to such place where the persons are backing you, the persons are supporting you, they are coming forward with all their experience, with all their knowledge, with all their abilities, that you go ahead and we are with you. So the thing is that I am graduated from Rishikul College, that is established in 1919. But those days, it was not developed to that extent. Realtently, our teachers were teaching from Charak, from Madhanidan, everything. But today is the different scenario. Here, totally work is going on, the research and the typical type of international level knowledge giving and taking. So your work, your proposed institute in the form of the number of certificate and diploma courses, well certified and well means cleared by the concerned authorities, will go a long way, and it will definitely product a good students having a great skill. So I do hope that this institute will not only survive, not only it will come forward, but it will produce such a wonderful person which will be appreciated by you people also. So today's webinar, based on the G.C.P and all that, is also resulted in a fruitful result that our institute, our international institute, is going to be happen by your great efforts. So God bless you, and our greetings and our support in all manner will always be with you. So kind of you. Thank you everybody who has presented today's seminar.
Thank you, Jauhri sir. Thank you, Ji. Thank you, Debjani Ji. Thank you very much. And thank you, Davis Ji. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you everybody.
हरिओम. जरूर मिलेंगे सर. तो जैसा आपने सुझाव दिया है वो उसके लिए हम लोग जरूर मिलेंगे, फिर वेबिनार करेंगे. दिसंबर के फर्स्ट वीक में वो प्लान करते हैं. धन्यवाद, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद जौहरी सर.
Thank you, Dr. Sharma. Thank you for your kind words. Thank you, everybody.
बहुत अच्छा गाइड किया आप लोगों ने. थैंक यू सर.